Yo, I'm telling you, legal tampering is so much fun till it should be illegal. Like, what a wild couple of days. Led by the person who may have the pole position when it comes to the Executive of the Year race. That's before the season's even started. Now, as we welcome in our brothers from another, Jim Trotter and Mike Jones. Jim, I know you don't like the off-season Super Bowl, and I know that people get too carried away with the transactions. Nerds like me love the transactions and the trades and the signings, and none of that stuff matters come January. I get it, but just have a little fun in this instance. Nice T-shirt, by the way. Has anybody had a better offseason between trading the number one pick to Carolina and now adding the likes of Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards at linebackers? Anybody had a better start to the offseason than one Ryan Poles in Chicago?
See, Mike, it's wrong for you to set me up that way, man. You know, as the old guy of the group, I bring history and I bring perspective. So, yes, you are correct. Ryan Poles has had a tremendous start to this free agency period. But now I must remind you of some numbers. Of the teams that have spent the most in free agency over the last 5 years, they have increased their win total by an average of 5 victories, right? Which sounds great. Here's the problem. Of those 5 teams, they have a grand total of 1 playoff victory in the year that they did all that spending.
Jacksonville last year, right?
Here's the other, and they overcame a 27-0 deficit, right? Here's the other problem.
What's the other problem?
True. The other problem is that the year after they do that spending, the past 4, we're not including Jacksonville because we don't know yet, but the previous 4 to that all had losing or non-winning records. So here's my point. Why do I bring this up? History has shown us that Super Bowl champions are built from homegrown talent for the most part, and teams that use free agency to supplement, not to bring in big name, big money guys. So since 2000, 19 Super Bowl champions have basically been homegrown teams for the most part, or they used a trade to acquire someone to put them over the top. The 4 teams that were not homegrown, those were teams that went out and got quarterbacks in free agency or made a trade for an elite quarterback. So who am I talking about? Peyton Manning with the Broncos, Tom Brady with the Bucks, Matthew Stafford with the Rams, and then Nick Foles also signed a free agent deal with Philadelphia the year they won it.
Right.
So that is what I'm saying to you. So I applaud Ryan for the moves that he has made and whatnot, but history has not been kind to teams that go out and spend a lot of money in free agency early on.
So the moral of the story is, next time I'm starting with you, Mike Jones. Mike Jones did an awesome article on The Athletic grading the free agent moves. Mike Jones, who is your biggest winner? Damn you, Jim Trotter. Who is your biggest winner so far in free agency, in this free agent frenzy? Who's your biggest winner?
Because we have to do this exercise where we can't even wait to let and see this stuff play out, and we've got to decide who wins in real time.
Right now,
I would have to say Chicago, but I like what he's done because he's gotten more draft picks. He's really trying to surround, Justin Fields with talent on offense, with the trade, getting DJ Moore. He's getting defensive guys because they were among the worst in the league as far as yards and points allowed. So this is great. On paper, it looks great. But as Lord Trotter pointed out, and being from the D.C. area, how many years did Washington win the offseason Super Bowl and spend all that money, and they never? So anytime I see teams go ham in free agency, you're just kind of like, well, we'll see. These grades look good right now, but it always takes some time, and it's never quite as good as it seems that it's going to be.
Man, like both of y'all need to, Mike Jones and Jim Trotter, both of y'all need to lively up yourselves. Come on and get into the spirit. Come on now, get into the spirit. You see what I did there, Mike Smith? Look, okay. How about this? Let's play this game. Number 1 pick has been moved. Carolina Panthers have it. Trotter and Jones, tell me, Who, if you were Carolina, if you were Frank Reich and his illustrious staff there, Jim Caldwell and others, who would you take with that number 1 pick? What would you do?
Go ahead, Mike Jones.
I would go with Bryce Young. As far as a skill set, he seems, and I know that he's not the biggest guy, but you have a lot of creative minds in your room right there with Frank Reich and Jim Caldwell and Thomas Brown. And again, if you can surround this kid, with weapons, with a great, strong run game, which they want to do. Deuce Daly is also on that staff. I think that you are going to be able to position yourselves for success. Now, again, you look at some of these guys that are coming out, Stroud, Anthony down in Florida, and they all have, Anthony Richardson's down in Florida. They all have, something to offer. But, I think that Bryce Young probably has the highest ceiling. That's the guy that you take. But you go out and I would get a veteran, maybe Jacoby Brissett. So that way you have somebody who you can lean on, that he can learn from if he's not quite ready, because it does take time. And you do have to surround this kid with weapons, with a strong defense, strong run game, if you want the return on your investment.
Look, if I were Carolina, the player that I would have taken would have been Lamar Jackson for a lot cheaper than what I'm paying out in terms of draft capital to move up to the number 1 spot. I get a 26-year-old quarterback, former unanimous MVP in the prime of his career, and all it's going to cost me is 2 number 1s and then the money. And David Tepper has enough money to spend on a player, so that shouldn't be a concern. So from my standpoint, I kind of didn't understand this from Carolina's viewpoint, when it's amazing to me how teams are so willing to go with the unknown over the proven. Look, Bryce Young may turn out to be the second coming. And everything I hear from everyone I've talked to, they rave about him, they love him, all of that. But I know what Lamar Jackson is. I don't know what Bryce Young is. I don't know what Anthony Richardson is. I don't know what C.J. Stroud is. I don't know what Will Levis is. They may all turn out to be great, but I don't know that. So why are we so averse to taking the known over the unknown when the known has been tremendous in the time that he has played? 4th in wins since he came into the league. Again, a former unanimous MVP. I'm just saying, having said that, having said that,
in his prime.
Absolutely. And having said that, if I'm in the situation now that Carolina is in, I agree with Mike Jones. Everyone I've talked to, they love Bryce Young. I remember talking to a quarterback coach who I respect greatly, offensive coordinator, former quarterbacks coach, during the season. This is before we even got to this point. And I'm watching Bryce Young on television on a Saturday, and I texted him and I said, hey, is this guy legit? I'm like, his size and whatnot, it really concerns me and whatnot. He said, no, he can sling it. And he said, I've known him since high school. He's the real deal. So from that standpoint, I would say if you surround him with the right people and you can protect him, I think he's the guy.
I had an OC at the Combine tell me that Young could be an offensive coordinator tomorrow. He's that smart, and he processes things that well. But I want to go back to free agency, though. But you mentioned Lamar Jackson. Let Lamar tell it. We don't know what we don't know. He's been busy on the Twitter today when it comes to, I guess, sort of setting the record straight and letting everybody know don't believe everything you hear or read from us so-called insiders. Mike, what is your read? Because now teams can start to talk to Lamar tomorrow if they so choose. What is your read as to where this Lamar Jackson situation may go this week, if it goes anywhere?
It is a frustrating thing to watch. You can feel Lamar's frustration. You talk to a lot of people around the league, and they have no doubt that these owners have all made up their mind that they are not going to give him the fully guaranteed deal. They are not going to continue along the path that the Browns set when they gave that to Deshaun Watson. And so you want to see it play out favorably for Lamar, just because of the fact of, like, as Trotter just said, he's got the body of work. He's done everything. I wouldn't be surprised if we wind up seeing him in Baltimore again on, the franchise tag. Now, I do wonder, though, everybody came out so quickly saying not interested, not interested, not interested, or not interested, which is interesting. there's somebody that's out there who's lying. And then, maybe because we don't have an agent in the mix right here, we're not getting that leaked out there that so-and-so is reaching out or so-and-so has some interest right there. It'll be very interesting to see how it plays out. I hope for Lamar's sake that he gets what he wants and he can say, hey, I did it my way, and he goes somewhere that really values him. And that he goes, but I just don't know. And I'm not too hopeful because I know these owners, they play by their rules. And that's why I won't be surprised if he just doesn't get what he wants and he has to play on the tag.
Oh, just real quick on Lamar. What is also fascinating, not only that they all lined up to say we're not interested, especially when some of them were turning over every rock possible for a quarterback last year, looking at you, Washington, looking at you, Carolina, as you mentioned, Jim.
Without even talking to him.
Because, okay, maybe he only wants a fully guaranteed contract from the team for whom he was unanimous MVP. Maybe if you whisper the right sweet nothings in his ear,
tell me about
as a new team, maybe he's like, oh, you know what? Okay, I'll make an exception, but I ain't making an exception for Baltimore. I want to go and I want to change the scenery. I want to go to somebody that maybe comes up with a creative contract that maybe the Ravens wouldn't even consider. To not even engage with him is fascinating. But moving on from Lamar real quick, if we can, if you don't mind. Another guy whose market is going to be fascinating is Austin Ekeler, guys. Because, Jim, Austin Ekeler has now been granted permission to seek a trade. It feels like to me, as good as Austin Ekeler is and has been these last couple of years, that's the wrong position in the wrong year between the amount of running backs who are already free agents and this draft class of running backs to get not only a team to pony up the draft capital to the Chargers, but also to give him the kind of contract he's probably expecting. As good as he is, that position is just so volatile. Does Austin Ekeler have much of a market, Jim?
Yeah, here's the thing. Everything you said is true, but I would add one thing to this conversation. So if I have a young quarterback, I want sort of a safety net for him, right? Sort of an outlet. And if you look at these PFF numbers on Austin Ekeler since 2017,
Jim brought the receipts today.
His PFF grade is second.
I love it.
His passer rating when target, second. His yards per route run, second. First downs and touchdowns, third. Yards, third. Receptions, third. Targets, third. Routes run, fifth. So I'm saying if I have a young quarterback and I need a complement, let's say, to a workhorse, a ground guy, Austin Ekeler is a guy I want. Now, if it's true that he's seeking some $12 million a year or whatever, he's not going to find that on the open market. We know that. But I'm saying if I have a club and I need an impact player in terms of at that position, particularly in the pass game, that is a guy I want on my team.
I'm not doubting that he's a great player. Oh, go ahead, Mike. I'm not saying he's not a great player. I'm just saying running backs are a dime a dozen. That's all.
But they're not. But they're not.
No,
but they're not. See, I disagree. I was going to say I disagree with you. When you put that in your feed, I was like, no, I disagree with Mike because not just because Austin Ekeler came on the show and was great and talked to your son Mason and said, Mason, you should have drafted me.
He did.
You should have drafted me on your fantasy team.
I should have remembered that before I said that stuff. You're right.
But I would say this about. But Ekeler, it's the same thing Jim was saying about quarterbacks. We can apply it to running backs too. Yeah, I know this is a position where we cycle in and out of running backs. A great running back today is on somebody's scrap heap tomorrow. But you look at how productive he's been at an incredible rate. I mean, 107 catches last year. I know it wasn't for a lot of yards, but 107 catches. Right. Then he was able to run the ball, gets into the end zone. I saw a stat, and you guys have seen it too. I love this. He and Hall of Famer Lenny Moore are the only two running backs with 25 touchdowns through their first 6 years. Like the only two, and 25 receiving and rushing touchdowns total in their first 6 years in football. That's a great stat. He's an incredibly productive player, and I think he would get it. I would give him the money.
But I would ask, but why won't the team for whose young quarterback he's been this safety net, Mike Jones? Why won't the Chargers? Let's just start with that. Forget about the open market. Why won't the Chargers pay the guys?
Because they got cap problems.
They do. They're in a situation where they can't take care of him. They have needs they have to fill, and they are like, okay, well, you know what? We're not going to give you what you want, so we've got to try to get something for you and get the cap relief. But I do think that there are teams that are out there that, I mean, we saw the 49ers be very aggressive in going after Christian McCaffrey. A running back nowadays who can also not just help you in the run game, but also help you in the pass game. Think of a team. Look at Buffalo. They could not run to save their life. They could have used somebody like Austin Ekeler in the playoffs because, you know, I think there will be teams that are close. Yes, we talked about maybe a young quarterback, but there are other teams that are close that need him to help them in a dimension and will find a way to get it done. Yeah, will it be for $12 million? Probably not, but it might be close, you know. But the thing is if it's going to give them the cap relief, they'll pull the trigger and somebody will actually add him and help them get to the winning spot.
Don't get me wrong. Listen, you know I'm a fantasy football nerd. Don't get me wrong. You know I love me some Austin Ekeler. I'm not saying the dude's going to be unemployed. I'm simply saying for the kind of contract he wants and draft capital that the Chargers will probably expect, I just don't know that many teams are going to be lining up, Jim, is all I'm saying. As good a player as he is.
Yeah. No, I feel you. But to answer your question about why the Chargers won't do this, won't pay him, there's a guy named Justin Herbert there right now that they are likely going to have to extend before the end of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, before the start of next season. So that's where all their money's going right now. And so I can see why they don't want to pay him that kind of money, knowing what they've got to fork over for him and knowing, look, teams are always trying to look a year or two ahead of what's coming. For the Chargers, they got some issues beyond this year. For instance, their wide receiver core after this year. Mike Williams' deal that they gave last year, a 2-year, $40 million deal, he's up after this year. Keenan Allen is another year older, beyond 30. His money, they're going to have to do something at that wide receiver position in all likelihood next year in terms of what it's going to cost them to potentially bring in a number one. So there are things they are looking ahead to as well that they have to deal with when you start talking about paying a running back that kind of money.
Eagles just signed Rashad Penny, for example. I hear y'all. Y'all are absolutely right in everything y'all are saying. It's just this position, man. It's just crazy. And the current landscape, it's crazy how many quality guys are on the market and available, veteran guys, and this draft class is supposedly pretty damn deep at running back as well. But look, I'm an Austin Ekeler fan. I hope he does well. I'm also a DeMeco Ryans fan. And he got Jimmy Ward to come down to Houston, to follow him from San Francisco to Houston. Wondering, I know you wrote about it recently, Mike Jones, but wondering how you see the Texans, because we talked about such dysfunction around that organization for the last several years, whether it's the management level, ownership, management, head coach, player level, just constant turmoil and drama and dysfunction at every level. But do you see this as potentially with DeMeco Ryans being there, Mike Jones, as something like a Pied Piper type situation where, you know, no state income tax in Houston? Does he bring a credibility to this organization, and can he succeed where others failed in spite of everything in Houston?
I hope so. I want to see him succeed. But again, the track record's really bad. And I mean, even just this week, they got hit for, messing with the salary cap with Deshaun Watson and paying, benefits for him. And so they got docked a 5th-round draft pick. This franchise just doesn't have a strong record. Now, the good thing for DeMeco Ryans is they don't see him as just a regular black coach. They see him as a former star of their franchise. So he's going to get more time. I think it was a 6-year deal that he got. And so they're letting him, and Caserio needs this to work out because, this is year 3 for him. If he can get the pieces in place, yes, that's going to help him, but they still have big questions at quarterback. So we'll see what they do in the draft. I want to see it work out. But again, when you see the way that they treated their coaches the last several years with David Culley, with Lovie Smith, I don't have a whole lot of confidence that even as talented as he is, that he can just be the cure-all for a franchise that hasn't treated people right, because it always comes back and bites you.
And whatever quarterback they get, Mike, I'm sorry, I was going to say they got Robert Woods as well as Noah Brown at wide receiver, and for whatever quarterback they bring in there, Joe.
Yeah, I'll say this to you about DeMeco Ryans. I think I know him fairly well. I've spent time with him, and he's a man of tremendous character and whatnot. I don't believe he would have taken this job without some assurances as to some type of input or influence he is going to have. their organization, as Mike says, no question, has been dysfunctional of late. No question. That starts from the ownership on down. And to do what they did to David Culley, to do what they did with Lovie Smith, I mean, it was in some ways degrading to these men who are both men of character. But I'll say this to you, if we can set aside for a minute the dysfunction, this organization is set up to potentially build for success. When you talk about having the second pick in the draft, when you're talking about having at least 11 draft picks this year prior to one being docked and whatnot, and knowing that D'Amico has a 6-year contract, there is a chance to build something in his vision. So again, he has not said this to me. I don't know this, but I know the man, and I believe that the man would have gotten some assurances before he took this job, and therefore I am one who believes that D'Amico Ryans will build this into something that will be successful, regardless of the dysfunction that has gone on in that franchise.
And you know, and I did ask him about that. He did.
Go ahead.
He did. He at the combine, I asked him. He said, "Look, I understand the history, but I can't worry about the past. I got to worry about right now." Yeah. But Nick Caserio's draft record is not good. There's been a lot of reaches, and so that's why I got some concerns for him.
From one former Patriot, or two, with Dave Ziegler as well, to Josh McDaniels. Yeah. What do you, I listen? Well, okay. I ain't even gonna ask the question. Why do Jacoby Myers, Jimmy Garoppolo, and trading Darren Waller today to the Giants? What are you wooing about there, Jim, when it comes to Josh McDaniels? Before we let you go.
For me, we have seen a kinder, gentler Josh McDaniels since he got to Las Vegas, right? And everything is the accountability and ownership of what went on when he was in Denver and this and that. But man, behind that nicer, gentler guy, he is making some gangster moves in terms of what he is doing to players and how he's doing them. I mean, what went on with Derek Carr at the end of last year to where he wasn't even around the building for the final few weeks? And now at the combine to talk up Darren Waller and about what he expected from him this year and how high he was on the year that Darren Waller was going to have with the Raiders this year and whatnot, to now send him off for a third-round pick right after he gets married to a WNBA player who plays in Vegas.
Oh, man. I didn't know all of that.
You know?
Oh, man. I didn't realize all of that. Man.
Yeah, it's, you know, so look, I like Josh. I'm hoping the best for him, but there's a lot of work to be done in that organization. And I just keep saying, how many complete rebuilds and teardowns can they go through? Going back to Reggie McKenzie when he took over, you know, going on to John Gruden and what he did, and now Josh McDaniels and what he's doing. It's like at some point you would say there has to be a bit of stability, but there's just a lot of uncertainty with that team, and particularly when you're putting all your money into a quarterback, as much as I love Jimmy G as a person and whatnot, who just has not been able to stay healthy the majority of his career.
Cool.
Yeah, it's interesting, but there's a lot of desperation. You can feel that desperation there, you know?
That's right.
I mean,
urgent. Well, yeah. Or desperation, or look, hey, if he's going to let me spend the money, if he's going to let me do it, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And that's what he's doing. He's spending Mark Davis's money. Not that he's got a ton of it, but whatever is available to him, he's spending it.
Absolutely.
All right, fellas. We appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Thank you. Thanks for raining on our parade, Jim. We're going to go back to enjoying the off-season Super Bowl. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.